In this video, we're adding audio to the Twizy. So in this video, I'm going to talk briefly about adding aftermarket audio solution to the Renault Twizy. So I'm going to talk briefly about what I'm installing, and then there'll be some pictures and kind of then a wrap-up portion at the end after I've completed the install to kind of talk you through how easy or hard it was and what I think of the results. So just to kind of bring everyone up to speed, so I showed you the Twizy that I've purchased recently. One of the things that you can request at the factory is to have an audio solution put in, and what that means is you get basically a Parrot car kit installed along with some standard OEM speakers, and then that gives you the ability to pair your smartphone and listen to music through that, either through MP3s or what have you, or you can connect an iPod or a USB stick with MP3s on and you can listen to it. Now, to get that pack from Renault is, I think it was £240. I think that's including VAT, obviously then plus fitting, or you fit it yourself. But I decided to have a go at doing it myself for two reasons. One is I like the DIY and save some money, and also if you do it yourself, then the money you're not spending on the premium of the kit, you can obviously put your own preferred speakers in, which hopefully should sound better than the ones you'd have from Renault as standard. And obviously the Twizy isn't built for music, in terms of it's not a great audio setup, but I think it's going to sound pretty decent. What I tried recently was that Soundcore 2, which I showed you in another video recently. Had that on the dash. It sounded really good actually, but obviously slides around a little bit. So I'll put links to all these things in the description. So I'll just briefly take you through what it is I'm doing and how I plan to do it. So in the Twizy, just above the seat or just behind the seat, there is an enclosure where the speakers go. So it's designed to have two 4-inch, so that's 10cm speakers in there. Thankfully the wiring is already in there by default with the Renault connectors on. I don't want to cut wires or do anything. I want to be able to put it all back to standard if I so needed to. So this is really, keep that in mind when we go through why I've chosen these products and why I'm doing it this way. So if you take that enclosure off, you'll see basically two white sockets. These are the Renault specific sockets for the speakers. So I've purchased these adapters. I just got these off eBay, I think they're like £5, and this enables you to plug in the Renault adapter and then connect it as standard as you would to some speakers. There are no speaker brackets. When you buy the kit from Renault, it comes with these metal speaker brackets. This is just one of them here. I've 3D printed my own speaker brackets off of Thingiverse. It doesn't, I mean, the quality's not too bad, if you can just see that, but it's not really that important because it's hidden by the enclosure. The main thing is that you can attach these and it will do the job, and it all kind of fits together quite easily. Kind of push fit into here. Obviously then you glue them just to make sure that there's not going to be any movement. Why isn't that bit going in very easily? So obviously I need to print another one of these. And the good thing about the 3D printing is if it doesn't work or you have some problems, it doesn't really cost you much, and you can just put it all back together. So that one's not fitting in there too well. But essentially this will just sit up in the roof like that. Then you drill and mount the speakers into there. So pretty straightforward. These are the speakers I decided to go with. Back in my youthful days, when I used to be more interested in upgrading cars and things, it was Pioneer and Infinity speakers that I preferred the most. I've found these three-way Pioneers online. I think they were £30, so not too bad price wise. Obviously 10 centimeters, 4 inches, so perfect for what we're looking for. Decent ability to handle a good amount of wattage. I'm not expecting them to be banging out loud bass or anything, but it should be reasonable. And having the three-way speaker has that kind of hopefully potential benefit of some bass, some treble and some mid-range. So I'm hoping that these sound reasonably decent. We will see, but they've got to be better than the stock ones that would come in the car if it was direct from Renault anyway. So that's the way I look at it. Next is the Parrot MKi9100. So this is by standard essentially the Bluetooth car kit that Renault install. There is a newer version, or I guess a different version of the 9200 that has a bigger screen, and I was thinking about getting that one, but then I decided I wanted to keep this all as standard looking as possible, which is why I've basically gone for this one. It has the latest version 3 software on it. Hopefully we'll find out when we unwrap it. This will basically give me the ability to have this small screen in the corner, so I can see who's calling, see what tracks are playing, etc. This control to enable me to use the phone if I want to. You're not going to use the phone in a Twizy, it's too windy, but I guess it's there if you need it. But mainly I'm interested in being able to control the music easily, and it's all ISO fitments. So below one of the glove boxes hopefully are the cables. This should just plug and play, mount a little amp somewhere, and we should be good. And then finally, the bit that most people, when I look online, didn't seem to have done if they decided to do this aftermarket, and I managed to find the part number, again, which I will share with you guys in the description as well. Anyway, but this is the enclosure from Renault that this little screen for the Parrot sits in and gets mounted up out of the way. So it does two things. It really makes it look more like it's part of the car, adds a bit of security because it's harder, someone's not going to just rob this, hopefully. But yeah, I think hopefully it's going to make everything look, as far as anyone's concerned, that this came standard like it's out of the factory. Just hopefully it sounds a bit better. So with that, I don't know how quickly I'm going to have time to do this. It's probably going to happen over a week or so. So I'll start getting these things printed, getting them mounted, running the wiring, and then I will resume this video with my conclusions on how easy it was, the issues I ran into, and then obviously then a video of the car so you can see and hear what the install is like. So, back in a moment. Okay, so the sun is shining for once, and I've finally finished the install of the audio system. So I thought I would briefly show you what that looks like at the end result, and kind of what was involved in installing it. A couple of the things that were easy, some of the things that were difficult. So yeah, I'll show you around and talk you through the install process, and then let you guys have a little listen. So the first thing to note obviously is the speaker cover is back on, and I do a little overlay so you can see with the 3D printed brackets in place. Then just here we have the control. Obviously everything in here is waterproof, so this is kind of rubberized, so it's fairly water resistant. And to try and keep this all looking as standard, I got one of the mounts for the Parrot screen. You can see it just fits in there nicely. You can see a little bit of the cable up at the back there. So probably do pushing that back up a little bit. So I used the plastic tools to kind of pull the A-pillar stuff off. Also to run the cable up there for the microphone. When you're doing the installation, basically everything is underneath here, so that this whole glove box needs to come out. There's basically a pin a plastic pin in either side of these. You take those out, means you can take this whole lid off. Then there's a series of these Torx head bolts. There's 4 of those. You pull this out. Inside here, a bit difficult to see, there is another Torx head bolt in there in a cigarette adapter. I removed that as well. And obviously right down the bottom here, under the gloves, is that onboard diagnostic port. So there is a little clip so you can unplug that. I just could not get it to do its business, so eventually I just pulled the whole glove box out and had it hanging on the dash with that still connected, and I could work around it. Now obviously one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're putting the little amp box in under the glove box there is it's also where the handbrake handle goes and everything, so you have to make sure that you kind of keep that in mind. I have it just sat there loosely. I think actually the manufacturer has it there loosely as well. Some people have looked at trying to mount it, but the other consideration you have to give is to the doorway struts. Obviously the doors obviously open that scissor door fashion, so there is a strut, a door strut in there as well. Another thing that comes with this kit is an aux and USB cable. So let me just unlock the other glove box so I can show you what I'm talking about here. So I decided to install this. As you can see, this is kind of the bung where it comes through, and here we have a USB connector. It's currently got just a 1 gigabyte USB drive in there, and a jack plug. And the purpose of that is so you can connect an iPod or an iPhone, or obviously USB audio as I had in this case. And I decided to put it into the locking side. I think ordinarily it's in the non-locking side of the glove box, but I figured if I ever do want to plug an iPod in there, I want to be able to lock that away so I don't have to worry about someone easily breaking and stealing it. Obviously that glove box, if you really ripped hard, it's going to come off, but at least it's not obvious to an opportunist what is in there. So that's pretty much it. To get that cable in was an absolute pain in the arse. So basically this whole section of the front of the car can come off. This behind this bulb or this light cluster is where the amp is, and so I had to run the cable all the way across here up into the other side, which is obviously behind that glove box, is where the cable is. And obviously because the Twizy is so small, trying to get anything through there is quite difficult. So in the end I just kind of used a small rod and kind of poked it through. That's probably what took the most amount of time. Probably took me an hour to just get that cable across, and the rest of the install, I think it took me about 3 hours all in all. One of the reasons for that is when I was putting the 3D printed mounts on, I decided to reinforce it a little bit more with some hot glue, and you would have seen that in the picture, just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. So obviously difficult to tell with the camera microphone, but I'll turn this on and you guys have a listen to the music. I think it sounds really good. Obviously the Twizy isn't the most perfect acoustic instrument or environment, but it works really well. The car kit works really well as well. I've tried that when going along. Obviously it's really noisy in the Twizy, so you're not when they're doing that really anything over 20 mile an hour, but it's good and handy to have. Right, so let's turn on so you can see what happens up here. So automatically you can sync your phone book, and then
As you can see, it's also connected obviously to the phone, to sync the phone book. I can also play Spotify and everything through there as well. I find just the ease of use, playing tracks directly from the USB is easiest, and it actually sounds louder. The volume is louder as well. One of the things I noticed is when it's not being used, it does this little kind of dull screensaver. You can just about see that moving around there. And I think that's to try and avoid distraction, obviously, whilst you're driving. So I will simply I'll show you basically how this works. So as you'd expect, you can make a call here. It's got voice recognition. That works reasonably well. As I said, if you're moving along, it's a bit noisy, so you can answer calls, hang up calls, move track back, move track forward, play, pause and mute. This is a turnable and push switch. So as we turn this, it adjusts the volume. When we push it, it then starts going through the different modes.
Telephone, iPod, USB, Bluetooth audio, line in, audio effects, settings.
So as you can see, it works pretty well, and if I press play, you can just start playing from the USB. So that's about half volume. Obviously the speakers are directly here above your ears, and it works really well for the driver, and actually the passenger can hear it really well when they're in as well. So I really recommend doing this audio upgrade on your Twizy if he doesn't have it already, and if you enjoy driving with music. For me, it really makes the car more enjoyable to drive, because I love driving with music, and so I was missing that, but now I have it. Excellent.
Thanks for watching this video. A thumbs up would be really appreciated. If you're interested in other geek type videos, please consider subscribing to Spectrum Geeks. Why not also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And before you leave, why don't you check out one of these other videos that may be of interest. Thanks again for watching.